Hello, my name is Charleen Sabini and I'll be answering the question, what impacts has COVID-19 created on the agriculture trading industry and how is it coping? It has been 10 months since the start of the global pandemic. According to CNBC, authorities around the world implemented lockdown measures that have brought much of global economic activity to a halt. Many businesses and economies have either gone bankrupt or are currently experiencing a recession due to the quarantine rule that has been enforced on a global level. But right now, we're going to analyze how the COVID-19 affected the agriculture trading industry in different parts of the world. To start, many businesses have been forced to reduce operations or shut down since the start of the pandemic due to the lack of sales and overall loss if the business continues to purchase goods from their suppliers without making any sales. Another reason is to prevent the spread of the virus, so it discourages customers to crowd in a specific area. According to Fortune, nearly 100,000 establishments that temporarily shut down due to the pandemic are now out of business, all including restaurant businesses. In the US, restaurants such as breakfast and brunch, sandwich shops, dessert places, and Mexican restaurants are among the many types of restaurants with the highest rate of business closures. Food trucks, coffee shops, bakeries, and pizza places could only survive and cope since they could do deliveries and takeout where no direct human interaction is required. However, in Singapore, the F&B or food and beverage firms rushed the production of a mobile application to allow customers to make orders and so employees can deliver food. Many businesses, including CNP, say that the crisis is an opportunity to transform their businesses by using technology such as e-commerce. By using this method, businesses can still make a profit. According to Statista, Singapore is projected to reach $260 million in 2020 and an annual growth rate of 8.0%. According to Forrester's, redundancy is one of the fair reasons which an employer can rely upon to dismiss an employee. Due to the businesses shutting down or losing sales, many workers have been made redundant and therefore is the main cause of a rise in unemployment. Because of the low unemployment rates, there will be reduced productivity and a decrease in outputs produced in the economy. In Indonesia, the agricultural sector, which employs more than a quarter of the national workforce, has been affected by COVID-19 restriction in many countries. The World Trade Organization predicts that global trade will decline up to 32% this year. To aid the farmers, the government has offered 34 trillion rupiah for loan interest subsidies and loan repayment relaxations for farmers and fishermen through a microcredit program known as KUR. Tani Hub Group, a business selling agricultural products online, reported that logistical disruptions might cause farmers to raise prices to offset risks. As a result, the prices of certain products might be higher when they arrive in Jakarta, despite being harvest season. Singapore, a country in Southeast Asia, is currently undergoing disruptions in food supply.
The entire supply chain is affected because people can't get out to plant the harvest, and the transport produce and so on. The person supplying the inputs like fertilizers, seeds and so on, already we're hearing that in some countries like the Philippines, the farmers are short of seeds. There's no seeds to plant.
Singapore has been building resilience in its food supply chain by importing source diversification, which means having more than one source country for each food item. If there are supply disruptions in one country, Singapore can fall on to other countries. The Singapore Food Agency says local production currently accounts for around 25% of egg supply, 14% of vegetables, and 10% of fish supply. Singapore produces less than 10% of its nutritional needs. SFA, or Singapore Food Agency, is aiming to increase the 10% to 30% by 2030. But because of COVID-19, SFA is accelerating 30 by 30 by putting aside $30 million to give grants to people or businesses in Singapore, which can quickly ramp up the production of eggs, leafy vegetables, and fish in the next 6 to 24 months. With technology, local farmers can optimize production and intensify agriculture, then use, for example, recirculating aquaculture systems that can produce 10 to 15 times more fish and vegetables per hectare compared to traditional farms and traditional land-based fish farms. According to this demand and supply diagram, Singapore's food supply curve shifted to the left, meaning that there is a decrease in supply because of Malaysia's movement control order, where the movement of people and goods across its borders are restricted. Due to the shift in supply along the demand curve, prices increase and the equilibrium switches as well. The economies of countries are also shrinking due to the pandemic. For example, Indonesia's economy is shrinking. According to the Jakarta Post, Indonesia's gross domestic product, also known as GDP, is now expected to shrink by 1.5% this year. Due to the falling household spending and investment, economists and government officials are projecting another contraction, which would mark a recession. GDP figures could have been much weaker had it not been for the fiscal, monetary, and regulatory responses that maintained income for households, cash flow for firms, and credit provisions, according to IMF economic counselor Gita Gopinath. The economy and GDP rates shrink due to the low aggregate demand, which leads to low consumer spending. If the economy continuously experiences low GDP rates for 6 months, then the economy would experience a recession, and so the central bank reduces interest rates, increases the quantity of loans, and increases the money supply by using the expansionary monetary policy in order to avoid the recession by encouraging consumers to borrow more and thus spend. So now, back to the question. What impact has COVID-19 created on the agriculture trading industry and how is it coping? To conclude, the COVID-19 pandemic made economies enter difficult situations where businesses shut down, resulting in unemployment rates rising, shortages of food supplies, and shrinking of the economy. However, they are surviving because of the efforts of the government and businesses combined. Governments offer temporary jobs to decrease unemployment rates, provide businesses with subsidies and funding for businesses to pay employee wages. Countries like Singapore have made methods in order to keep the agricultural industry going, and of Indonesia's responses to withhold their GDP. Hopefully, the pandemic would quickly recede so that everyone can resume to their daily activities. Thank you for watching and stay safe. Goodbye.